to the September 16th, 2019 edition of the Clemson Dubcast. Happy Monday morning. You know what Monday morning means. It means Paul Strelo's information-packed Monday Recruiting Insider. Almost like, when you were growing up, you had your routine of reading the morning paper every day. That's what it feels like every Monday morning. You just feel like you have to pull up the Monday Insider to start your week off right. Plenty of stuff coming up this week. Just put the finishing touches on some Monday football nuggets. Took a deeper examination into this defense. Man, what a job done by Brent Venables. He just never ceases to amaze. Our title sponsor of the Dubcast from way back in the beginning, August of 2018, Parham Smith & Archenhole Law Firm in downtown Greenville. Blake Smith, a good friend of mine, he's been representing plaintiffs in medical negligence and other personal injury cases for over 15 years. Blake serves on the advisory board for the paralegal program at Greenville Technical College. He recently completed his 10th year as an adjunct pro bono professor at Clemson University, where he teaches sports law. Blake was also featured in a recent Consumer Reports heart surgery risk article. In other words, Blake and everybody else at Parham Smith & Archenhole know what the heck they're doing. Free consultations, 864-990-4581 or online at parhamlaw.com. Quick word about Uptown Realty LLC, headed up by Patrick Enzer, former sports writer who decided to get into the real estate game. Uptown Realty, locally owned and operated out of Sumter, but they serve the Eastern Midlands and PD area with the buying and selling of homes, commercial properties, and land. They also offer affordable new housing in the mid-130,000s from a local custom builder. Patrick is the sole owner and broker in charge. Grew up in Anderson, going to Clemson games, been in Sumter for 15 years, loyal Tiger Illustrated subscriber, loyal Dubcast listener. Website is uptownrealtysc.com. Okay, Charlotte comes to town this Saturday, and they are coached by somebody you have to think is going to be a big success in college football at Charlotte and beyond. Just an amazing story, number one, having taken over just a total wreck at Austin Peay. And what makes it really cool for you guys, you listeners, you Clemson fans, is Dabo Swinney is really his model. And when we recall Dabo Swinney talking about, for years now, he wants to build the model college football program. Really cool to hear coaches elsewhere, foremost among them Will Healy, being strong and enthusiastic proponents of doing it the Dabo way. So many similarities. These two really appear to be cut from the same cloth. So here we go. This is a really fun interview. Hope y'all enjoy. Okay, joined by Will Healy, the head coach of the Charlotte football team that's going to come rolling into Death Valley. Will, I have been going to school on you, I guess, for the better part of this morning and last night, and what an amazing story. And I guess we'll just start with your connection, I guess, with Dabo, even though you've never met him in person. When you got the job at Charlotte, a quote from him was at the very top of the press release. So I know people are just curious to hear how this relationship started and the communication y'all have, I think, on a regular basis, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, what people don't understand is those quotes are $1,000 a sentence, and he'll say it about anybody who calls him. No, I've had a chance to meet him one time. I went and sat on row Z of the Charlotte FCA banquet at the very top, and I promise you, if he started a church in Charlotte, he'd have the largest church in the country. But got a chance to listen to him and share his faith, and he lives it. And I think that's what makes him so unique. Is there's so many guys that preach about it, and every college coach knows the right answer and what every high school recruit's parents want them to say, but to actually live it and be able to preach it like he does is what makes him so unique. So I left and thought, well, there goes any hope, dream I ever had of being as cool and as good a person as Dabo Swinney. So really what happened, he called me one time when I was the head coach at Austin Peay about a graduate assistant that was interested in one of our jobs. I remember where I was. I was driving around in Alabama on the back roads in Alabama, and this guy, this Clemson number pops up, and he's like, "Hey, Will, this is Dabo Swinney." And I was like, "Okay, what buddy of mine is this wanting to play a trick on me and make fun of my man crush on Dabo Swinney?" And so he starts talking. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this is really Dabo Swinney." So he's talking about this guy, and he's like, "I think he'd be a great fit for you." And I'm kind of shell shocked, So I'm like, "Thanks so much." And before he hangs up the phone, I'm like, "Coach, can I tell you something?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And I said, "I just want to thank you for what inspiration you've given me in this profession, and what I think you are doing for this profession, not just for your football team, but like everybody who's getting into it now always looks to see who's at the top. And now people are getting into it saying Dabo Swinney is at the top, so I can be more like him and have success in this profession." Not to say it's the only way, right? Obviously, you got Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney. They have two very different ways of doing things, but they're ultra successful. But it makes it a lot more fun for me, almost validating how I want to do it just by the way you do it. And he said, "Appreciate it. Thanks a lot." I'm sure he didn't need it from a 0-11 head coach at Austin Peay to validate what he was doing. But, and so we've stayed in touch a bunch since. Every time I call him, he calls me back. He texts me back. I'm going to make sure that my wife gets a chance to meet his whenever we're in Clemson. And he just... he's 100% a mentor of mine, somebody that I respect so much how they do things without necessarily having played for him or coached for him, but I think it says a lot about him and his character, the fact that he would spend time with me, even though there's no background behind that relationship.
And so when you got the job at Charlotte, he called you that morning. Did I read that correctly somewhere?
Yeah, I talked to him. I was in the airport actually, flying back from. I think I was flying back from New York City. If I'm not mistaken. And I think the rumor had gotten out there. I had not gotten the job. I didn't get the job until later on that afternoon, but obviously with the social media world, the rumor was flying around, but it was not a done deal. And, I just said, congratulations. And if this works out, then I know you'll do great there, and anything I can do to help, let me know. So it was, it meant a lot to me. And I know that it's not just me that he does that for. If he's doing it for me, I know he's doing it for 1,000 others. But he's always been really, really good to me and has had great insight. I talked to him a couple of times before the season and just, "Hey, Coach, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think?" Or, "Hey, y'all play on a Thursday night. We play on a Thursday night. How you handling the first couple of days of camp?" Or, all those different things that are still new and new to me. He gives me great insight and either confirms or makes me think twice about the decision I've made.
All right, we'll get back to that relationship, but I want to dig into your story. I guess from Chattanooga, played at Richmond,
Yep.
And then coached at Chattanooga as an assistant for 7 years?
I was there for 7 years, which is my hometown. So I got out. Originally out of high school, I signed with Air Force Prep. Signed with Air Force, went to the prep school for about 6 or 7 months, and quickly figured out that going to Air Force to play football and that being your number one reason is a really bad reason to go. And so I transferred to the University of Richmond. Spent 5 years there, redshirted my first year. So I felt like a 32-year-old senior. Was a member, and I say member loosely. I was a member of the national championship team in 2008 because I was a really bad player and surrounded by really good people. After we finished that, our defense coordinator got the head job at Chattanooga. and wanted to get into coaching. And so went back and was a restricted earnings quarterback / wide receiver. I helped our coordinator. I basically I was a gopher. I ran copies, pretty much every day, and then got the receiver's job the second year, spent 7 years there, and got the head job at Austin Peay in 2016.
All right. The casual college football fan has no idea how bad Austin Peay was. In fact, I didn't. I remember Travis Healy, who you've become close with and who works for Charlotte now, telling me way back when, and I just didn't even really I wasn't processing it, I guess. But as you have said, that job was the 256th ranked job out of 256, and they had lost 37 of their previous 38 games when you got there.
Yeah, and then I helped with that, going over for my first 13. So I would love to act like it was just the last guy's fault, but it was a lot of my fault too. And so one of the things to me that I've had to be really careful with, because I loved the Austin Peay job. I was 30 years old. I was a passing game coordinator at Chattanooga who had never called a play in my life. And Austin Peay was ranked the 256th ranked team out of 256 Division I teams. So it was an area that I was really familiar with, because it was, everybody thinks Austin Peay, Austin, Texas. It's in Clarksville, Tennessee, which is about 45 minutes north of Nashville. So it was an area that I'd recruited a lot when I was at Chattanooga. I had a lot of friends in the profession that were interested in a different type of experience as a coach, and believed in the way we would do things. And we were all ignorant and young enough to feel like we could fix the worst program in the country. And so I loved it. And there's not another athletic director in the country who would ever have hired me other than Ryan Ivey at Austin Peay. And I remember sitting in Ryan's office. I felt like, I still give him a hard time, I feel like he gave me like 25 interviews to get the worst job in the country. And I remember sitting in his office one of the last times I was there, and I said, why would you not take a chance? What do you have to lose? I mean, you've lost 37 of the last 38. If we win one game, then they're going to build a statue of all of us. So, this is the time to take a chance, because it can't be any worse than this. And he did. I think a lot of it was based on who I could bring with me. I hired a great staff. A lot of them, I think 6 or 7 of them are with me still right now at Charlotte. And we went 0-11. We gave up 700 6 or 7 different times that year on defense. And, we really we had one game where we were close. We were 0-8. We played Tennessee State. We scored with like 1:15 on the clock, and to go up 6. Tennessee State scores with 3 seconds on the clock, and then we block the extra point, and it skips over the back of the upright to beat us. But that was really, I think we lost by 7 to maybe Mercer. What would happen is these teams would be blowing us out, and then they'd take it easy, and our guys would keep fighting, and we would fight back and make it like a 1 or 2 score game. But it was really never that close. But you still felt like you were fixing the culture. I mean, we had a lot of attrition, a lot of guys that said, this is not for me, or from a character perspective, I didn't think they were great fits for us. And it was a really tough year. And then fast forward to the next year, 2017, we opened up at Cincinnati, had multiple chances with the ball deep in the red zone to have a chance to sneak out a win there. We were 55-point underdogs, and I think got beat by 7 or 10 maybe at Cincinnati. Turned the ball over on the 3 and got stopped on 4th and 2 on the 2. And next week get blown out by Miami of Ohio. And I remember talking to our seniors and our leadership group, and I said, guys, what is the issue? We practice with so much energy. You guys do such a great job of preparing during the week. And then Saturday, payday, you go out and this weekend you look like you were disinterested in playing football. Like, why would you practice that hard if you weren't going to enjoy the games? And Max Ewalt, one of our seniors, said, Coach, Monday through Friday is fun for us because we get a chance to hide. Nobody else gets a chance to see us play. And Saturdays, we've gotten our butt kicked for so long that it's not enjoyable.
Wow.
And so we were playing Morehead State that next week with a 29-game losing streak, longest in the country. We had a home game, and they had bought us new goalposts in the spring. And I told the guys, I'm not putting new goalposts up until you tear the other ones down. And we're not tearing them down until you win. So the whole time I got students to come to a game because I talked about we're tearing down the goalposts. We're tearing down the goalposts. So we broke an attendance record with the nation's longest losing streak. We beat Morehead State, who is a non-scholarship FCS team, and beat them handily. I think we got like 15 celebration penalties because I wanted them to have fun playing football on Saturdays for the first time in years. I remember the head referee said, well, y'all got to act like you've been there before. And I said, but we haven't. And so, and then all of a sudden it snowballed. Beat Murray, which is our big rival at Austin Peay. We beat UT Martin, which was a top 15 team in the country at that point in time. And our only other loss that year, 2 losses, we lost to Jacksonville State, who was ranked second in the country, and then Central Florida. And went 8-4, narrowly missed the playoffs, and had one of the best turnarounds in college football history. And I say that because I promise you, anybody who will listen, I'm the most overrated human in the country, but I have been very lucky who has come coach with me and how our players have believed in what we're doing. And the same thing's happening here.
I want to rewind. So the weight room per se at Austin Peay was on gravel. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, when we got there, I did not have our own strength coach. So we made some changes. Actually, I made a change in probably February that, hey, I don't have an opportunity to hire or fire our strength coach, but I have an opportunity to not use who we have right now. So our staff's going to run it. So the offense would lift at 5 a.m., defense would lift at 6 a.m., and our offensive and defensive staffs would run the weight room. So me teaching hang cleans and power cleans and squats and deadlifts is a really bad idea. I'm about 5'10", 195 pounds, and have the worst dad bod you've ever seen. So not a good idea. We find, but just from how we approached them and how people were talking to them and how people addressed the group, I wanted our staff to do it because I needed that energy in the weight room. And finally, we're able to hire a strength coach. He's still with me now. He is the number one reason why our culture changed at Austin Peay and why it's changed here. And life changed for us as a staff, not having to get up and lift them. I think I had 2 or 3 phrase words like "get it up" or like "squat down," or I had no idea what I was talking about. But it definitely changed our life having a strength coach for sure. So
your first year, 2016, you kick half the players off the team?
That's a bad way to say it. It is. I think there were some differences, whether it was my difference with them or them with me. But it was a lot. I think we had 50-something guys that originally were on the roster when we got there and weren't, by the time we finished the season. And, it's attrition, I think, happens every time you take over a job. It's happened very little here, but it's happened some. But it was a different commitment. I remember showing, I think we had 13 quit the first off-season conditioning session we did. And I had to show them highlight videos of Alabama doing a mat drill. I guess you call it a highlight video. I know it's a low light for everybody who's going through it. But, just to say we're not the only ones doing this. And this is not my, I'm not trying to run you off. What I am trying to do is make sure that we do the things that other teams are doing to give ourselves an opportunity to win. And so there were some differences, for sure. We demanded more out of them. We used all of our 20 hours a week and we wanted them to do some things on their own. So I know it was a tough transition and some of them weren't willing to do what we wanted to do to stay a part of the team.
Some players were drinking on the bus going to games. Is that right?
Yeah. So one of Travis's videos that he did was our receiver, who's still playing in Canada right now, was talking to Travis, and I didn't know this until I saw the video. But he was talking about how on the way back from away trips, the guys would be drinking on the back of the bus, and nobody cared. And one of the things that for me, when I saw the program change, is the game that I talked about with Tennessee State. We were so close, and the guys knew how close we had been that it finally meant something to them when they lost. And that's a weird thing to say when you're talking about changing the culture of a program, but that's what got their attention. Hey, maybe if we do practice a little bit harder or prepare a little bit more, we could actually win a game. And that really got their attention. We were so close that I think that's when the tide started to turn. And then I remember, the next year in year 2, we were going to play Moorhead. And it was the only game on the schedule that people thought we should actually win because Moorhead was non-scholarship. And I remember on the bus by myself on the way from the hotel to the game. And I never, ever, ever questioned what I did, how I did things. I knew I made mistakes and I learned a lot from it. But every time, at the time when I made the decision, I thought it was the right thing to do and the best thing for our program and our kids. And so I put a lot of pressure on them that week. And I told them, I said, get used to it because that's why you picked this place is we're going to be favored to win games. And so get used to being the favorite and all these type of things. And we got to wear them out and, we got to dominate and all these type of things. And you're talking to a group that's lost 29 in a row and they're kind of looking at you like you got a couple heads and they're saying, Coach, we just want to win a game. I don't care how bad we win. Just give me a point win, And I remember being on the bus thinking to myself, if we don't win this one, and if this message doesn't work, I don't know if this is ever going to work. I don't, this is it. You got this, it's either the whole thing could change today or I don't know what other game on the schedule you're going to win if you don't win this one. And how are you going to continue to convince people that we can get this done when you go 0-11 both years? And it's the only time for me that I ever had any doubt is just I put so much pressure on that week. And I thought to myself, did I do the right thing? Because these guys aren't used to pressure and they're not used to winning. And sure enough, they came out and, scored 69 points and blew them out of the water. And it looked like a great decision, but it was a shot in the dark. I definitely had no idea how to handle it, but I just went with my gut, and the guys responded.
The loss you mentioned as the turning point, where the extra points partially blocked, but still skitters over the goalpost. You talked about this in a podcast. I guess you did over the summer, maybe, or maybe farther back than that, but really poignant moment. And hoping you can share here that one of the, I guess, a DB who got beat for that touchdown was actually a receiver who had played however many snaps as a receiver and then had to go over to corner, and he had a full body cramp on that play. Can you just maybe elaborate on that and take us back to that moment?
Yeah, so the exact same receiver that I was talking about that had the interview with Travis and said that they were drinking on the bus that is now playing in Canada, Kyron Moore, his nickname was Tiny. He's about 5'8", and probably 150 pounds soaking wet. And was a dynamic athlete. I mean, he's still returning punts left and right in Canada and having a great career. We needed him to play corner as well. So he played 74 snaps on offense, and we did more motions, jazz motion, going back and forth and handing the ball to him on speed sweeps. And I think he had 15 touches and played 74 plays on offense, and he played 5 plays at corner. I think he had a pick and maybe 2 BPUs in 5 plays. Well, the last play of the game, 3.5 seconds to go, he's lined up man-to-man on one of Tennessee State's receivers, and as soon as the ball snaps, Tiny goes down and is laying face first on the ground. The guy catches the ball in the corner. Our safety can't quite get over there fast enough, knocks him out of bounds. Guy makes a great catch, toe taps the line, and they score. 3 seconds left on the clock. And so I go out to the field because Tiny's still laying face down, and He says, "Coach, I can't move. I got a full body cramp." And you go back and you watch the film, and it's as soon as the ball snaps, he goes in, he locks up, and the guy catches a touchdown. We block the extra point, but it slides over the back of the upright. And I remember that locker room, how devastated they were, and how devastated Tiny was in particular, because he put so much into it. And he was such a good example for me of, this is how you should feel. You're devastated because you feel like you gave everything you had. And I don't know if there's a better way to live life than just put your whole heart out there and be elated, like take your shirt off in the locker room with the dad bod elated when you win a game, or devastated to the point of, can life go on anymore when you lose? And, and then we bounce back up regardless. And we understand that life does go on. And there's more important things than football, but when you're in the heart of it, just put your whole heart on the line. And so, And Tiny did that, and all the other guys, I think, saw it, and they probably felt bad if they didn't do it themselves. And I think the other things that you were able to talk about on top of that was, Tiny, think if you would have, maybe if you'd gotten a little bit more sleep, or you'd have taken a little bit better care of your body, is there anything you could have done more, to make sure that doesn't happen on the last play? And so all of those things were great teaching points for us, but just break your heart. I'm telling you, year one was really hard for me, because I had to look all of those assistants that had left better jobs to come work with me and think to myself, are they regretting this decision? And all of these players who you pour your heart and soul into, and you guarantee them that success is coming and things are changing, they don't see any of it on the field. And you wonder, man, I just wish they had a better experience. Like I remember senior day for those seniors, and we did a video, and they were talking about, one of the questions that was asked was like, your best experience here at Austin Peay. And a lot of them were like, I remember scoring a touchdown one game, or some of them were like, I remember when we won the OVC basketball tournament, and and I'm thinking to myself, I've failed. These guys have not had an experience here that they would choose again. They would choose somewhere else, and that was hard to swallow. But I think that they laid the foundation for what happened a year later.
So even after winless season in 2016. In 2017, your recruiting class is ranked number 1 in FCS. How does that happen?
Well, a lot of the assistants that I talked about that I was so lucky to be around, I think, do as good a job as any at developing relationships. The other thing about it is we got guys on campus a lot. It wasn't like we were going to be able to go to Florida from Austin Peay and go convince some guy to not pick Jacksonville State and come play for us. It had to be guys that we had on campus 5, 6, 7, 8 times, where they believed in us enough and they were willing to go back and tell their boys, I'm going to Austin Peay. Even when they said, you're doing what? They said, yeah, I get it. Doesn't sound cool right now, but we're going to make it cool. And I think that's what it takes. I mean, it's a belief in something bigger than yourself. It's a relationship with coaches where you feel you're confident in their ability to change things, and then it's a confidence in yourself and betting on yourself that you can be the reason why it changes. So I tell players all the time, and I tell them the same thing here, that you can make a really popular decision on signing day because it sounds cool, like I did as a senior in high school picking Air Force. Or you can make a not quite as popular decision on signing day that everybody's going to forget the next day anyway because they're worried about the next class, and know you're laying your head on a pillow somewhere where you're going to be happy and you can be the best you. And that's hard to convince just in a 48-hour official visit or one-time visiting a high school. They got to get there and see it for themselves and be bought into it.
Want to welcome aboard to the podcast Black Acre Law Firm, sister law firm of Parham Smith & Archambault in Greenville. Stuart James is a 1998 Clemson grad, big Clemson fan, just like the Parham Smith & Archambault family. Black Acre gives you the representation you can depend on when you're on the home stretch, closing on your house. All those documents you're signing, all those technical aspects of it, the last thing you want is for something to go wrong at that point. Black Acre also provides services for wills, powers of attorney, durable, and healthcare. Don't put yourself and your family in a bad situation by not having these important documents. Call today for a consultation, 864-775-5400, or go to their website, blackacrelawfirm.com. That's BLACKACRE lawfirm.com. A great friend of the Clemson Dubcast and winner of the Clemson Area Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year Award, Founders Federal Credit Union. If you've been to a sporting event in Clemson, you've probably heard about Founders already. They are the official credit union partner of the Clemson Tigers, and all Clemson faculty, staff, and students are eligible for membership, as well as IPTAY members. Matt Gross is a proud Clemson alum and the vice president for the Clemson market for Founders Federal Credit Union. Membership at Founders has many benefits: great rates on loans and savings products, advice on investments and insurance products, and even a Clemson debit card available for any Founders member with a checking account. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by the NCUA. If you're in Clemson, stop by and see Matt and his staff, 680 Old Greenville Highway, Suite 300, right next to the Walmart Neighborhood Market. So in 17 is when you guys played Central Florida, correct?
Yep, 17. We played at Central Florida. They had a hurricane game. And we got a phone call after we were 0-2 saying, "Hey, would y'all be interested in coming down to South Florida or Central Florida and come play?" And I asked the guys on the team, and they're like, "Yeah, shoot, let's go to Orlando." And I had no idea at that point in time that we would be 5-3, fighting for a playoff berth, and that they would be 6-0 and end up proverbial national champions. So, unbelievable trip. I'm sure you're going to ask about what all we did while we were there, and maybe even a Scott Frost story. Is that your next question?
Well, I'm just that trip, and then the trip to Athens last year. The stuff you did. I mean, charter a plane, you go to the beach, you go to Disney World, you're getting massages for your players down in Orlando. Scott Frost is, I think he said he didn't even know if y'all were going to show up after seeing all the stuff you're doing. And then on the trip to Georgia last year, you go to the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. You stay at the Chateau Elan, I guess halfway to Athens or so. And I don't know if y'all got massages there. I'm just curious. You wanted these to be experiences more than going as a quote unquote business trip.
Yeah, that's a great. It's an unorthodox, I think, way in a thought. But so when we were going to Florida, it was our off week, and the last thing I wanted our guys to do was to think, man, we just had to do a whole other week of practice, and we're not, mentally in the right frame of mind going into the next 3 conference games. So I said, all right, we're going to leave. I think we left Wednesday. How many of you have been on a plane? And I think like 30 of the 70 that were traveling said they'd been on a plane. Well, how many of you have been to Disney World? And, very little raised their hand. How many of you have been to the beach? And, some more raised their hand. So we fly down, we charter a plane, we get down there, we go straight to Disney World. All the families are there. We took some boosters with us. We go spend the day at Disney World. They could not stop talking about the Avatar ride, every single one of them. We come back the next day. We wake up. We have massages for them, and we set up times for them. And then we went and rented out a resort at Cocoa Beach, and we had about a 2.5 minute walkthrough, enough for me to take pictures and sell it in recruiting on the beach. And was playing around, and they were playing pickup basketball and swimming in the ocean and in the pool and all that type of stuff, and had a big buffet, resort style buffet out on the lawn there. And it was unbelievable. One of the things I remember about that trip is, and I think this is a problem sometimes, the further up you get and the more you're able to do for them. But that Friday morning after we'd done a lot of that stuff, we had these massages set up for them. And we had individual times, and we had about 8 guys that skipped their time because they wanted to sleep in. And so we're walking out to the beach. This was right before we were, we got on the bus, and we paid for these massages, and these guys just didn't show up. And so we're all walking to the beach. And I said, before y'all start walk through, come over here. And so I sit them down and for about 5 minutes, just read them the riot act about how are y'all going to be ungrateful? I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that nobody can give you a better experience than we can. I'm trying to do things for you that the best of the best schools in the country aren't thinking about doing right now. And some of you are lazy enough and ungrateful enough where you're going to skip a massage. Think about how selfish that sounds. So I'm going to stop fighting to do some of these really nice things if you're just going to be that ungrateful. Or you can understand how selfish you've been and you can change and you can start realizing how blessed and lucky you are to experience some of these things. And it's kind of a kumbaya and come to Jesus meeting and they responded, and then we went out the next day and played great. It was like 33-26 at halftime against Central Florida with, not practicing for the last 3 or 4 days. And so I told our coaches on the headset, or at halftime, I was like, for those of you who want an extra 5 minutes every day of practice, you've just totally disproved your point because we played better on offense than we have the entire year. So practice is obviously overrated for us. And then we go to Georgia the next year and we actually drove halfway because it was about an 8-hour bus ride. We drove halfway, stayed in Chattanooga, woke up the next day, went to the College Football Hall of Fame, did our walk through it at Sanford Stadium, and then we stayed at Chateau Elan. And I told our guys, there's 2 things. All right? When you stay at a hotel where you can't pronounce the name, it's either really disgusting or it's ridiculously nice. And in this case, this place was ridiculously nice. Those type of trips for me are ways to not just take care of the players and do great things for the players. There are also opportunities where I can do really nice things for the wives. So setting up spa days and doing nice dinners and just thank them for what they have to go through by being with us through a season and their support. And so, we'll do the same thing with them when we come to Clemson.
So many similarities between yours and Dabo's story. You met your wife in middle school. He met his, I think, in elementary school. Both of y'all broke up. You broke up with your girlfriend in high school, I guess, for a time, or maybe college, I guess. Y'all were.
Yeah, first 2 years at Richmond. Yeah.
Gotcha. And I think I'm getting this right. Dabo and Kathleen had a little time off from each other in high school. Y'all both much more importantly. Neither of y'all had been a coordinator when you became a head coach. And then the big thing, the focus on person over player, relationships, positivity, fun, energy. You have cameras at your practices focus solely on body language of the players. Also an end zone celebration camera. Team motto for 2018 last year was "Leave no doubt," which Dabo says about 32 times a week. Best is yet to come, you have said. Football is fun now, but I want to prepare you to be a man. And I'm going to end this spiel now. I think this was your pregame speech before Georgia. And I'm getting this, by the way, from a great article by Pete Thamel of Yahoo. He did back last fall, I think, after the Georgia game. But the pregame speech was, don't ever forget gratitude. Don't ever forget to say thank you. Pick up the dadgum trash on the bus. I swear, I've been around Dabo since, I think, 2004. And it just sounds like a page straight out of his book.
I am nowhere near as good as Dabo Swinney. I mean, I really, and I mean that. That's like not me just trying to be humble. I know that. I think that there are so many things that I have tried to learn from him because I do love the way he coaches and develops relationships and what kind of person he is. And I think the one thing that sometimes coaches make a mistake of doing is that they try to copy and emulate somebody so much that they don't stick true to who they are, and because at some point in time, something's going to come across my desk where I'm not going to have been able to read an article about how Dabo handled the situation. And so I'm not going to know exactly what he would do. And I have to believe in my gut and my heart that I'm doing the right thing for the kid in the program at that point in time. So, because I've seen it happen a bunch, a guy learns under somebody he leaves, he becomes a head coach, and he's going to try to be just like the guy that he just worked for, and he's going to do it the exact same ways. And then you get stuck a couple times, and it's like, shoot, I never saw him handle this. I wonder how he would handle it, or explain why you did it this way. And you're like, I don't really know why I did it this way. I guess it's just because the other guy did it that way. And your heart's really not believing what you're doing as much as you're just trying to copy somebody else. And you can't just take what somebody does somewhere and pick it up and move it to another and expect to have the same results with it. So I've had a bunch of coaches in my life that I've been fortunate enough to be able to look at, learn from, and then be able to try to mold what I want and what I believe in into all of those type of all the things that I agree with what those people have done.
What other coaches, and I think Mac Brown is on this list, were your models for sort of prioritizing the coach-player experience, I guess, is the best way I can put it?
So I played in college for Dave Clausen.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, he was the head coach at Richmond whenever I was there, and was an unbelievable coach. I mean, it totally changed the culture of a program. I think we were 1-11 the year before I got there, and then I think went like 3-8 my first year there, and the next year went to the quarterfinals of the playoffs, and ended up winning the national championship 2 or 3 years later, where we had a program. I remember being in a suit and tie, waiting outside the alumni building on the board members to go in and vote whether we were going to go go to non-scholarship football. And the president was just going to do it. He wasn't going to tell anybody, and word got out. And so Coach Clausen had all the players lined up outside the alumni alumni hall to shake their hands and say, please don't get rid of scholarship football. Because we'd lost Lafayette that was non-scholarship, and our president just wanted to be in the Patriot League. So, the job that he did with the program and how he built a program, I think, is second to none. So I learned a ton there. Then I worked for Russ Huseman, who's the head coach at Richmond. I worked for him for 7 years at Chattanooga, and learned so much about how to hold guys accountable, and what you're really looking for from a character perspective in recruiting, and how to hire right, and all of those things that he was able to teach. And then so you had two, and then Mike London was my coach my senior year in college, and we won the national championship. And just the way I'll never forget having families and kids like running between your legs at the pregame meal for the national championship game. And very, very different than Coach Clausen. Two great coaches, two ACC coaches at one point in time. Obviously, Coach Clausen's still doing it, and Coach London's now back at William & Mary. But they had two different ways of doing it. And I really related very well to Coach London and still talk to him all the time. And he, did such a good job of inheriting the program that Coach Clausen had worked so hard to build, and then maintaining it and even pushing it to the next level. But also the relationship side was very different with Coach London. I mean, he was a guy that people would, do anything, run through a brick wall for. And all of us related very well to that. And so that was kind of more of my, what pushed me and what I wanted to be as a coach. And then, I've been fortunate enough to run across some guys through the profession. Mac Brown's obviously one that's always been so hospitable and interested, and it has been really good to me and given me some great insight, whether it was at Austin Peay or here, just on ways to do things and how to treat people. Coach Swinney's without a doubt another one, and Scott Frost has been a really good one. When we played them at Central Florida, I was really blown away by my interactions with him, and just was so impressed by how he did things that, we still talk a good bit, and has been great to me. So I would say those are, the majority of them. There's others, guys who have coached me, and Coach Cutcliffe's been really good. There's been a bunch, but I would say, Coach Swinney and Coach Brown and Scott Frost are probably the three head coaches that I run stuff by the most.
I guess you were a senior at Richmond in 2008 when Dabo got the interim job. Was that the first time you had heard the name Dabo Swinney, or was it after that?
That's a good question. It was probably I probably knew about it. I remember, as a 5'9", 153-pound stud single-A high school player from the state of Tennessee, thinking that surely Clemson's about ready to pull the trigger. So I'm sure he recruited me hard. Whatever. No, I'm kidding. But I think I did go to their camp maybe and maybe threw a completion or two and thought, when they said good throw, that meant the offer was coming next. So I think I remember him from those times. But I was always, really interested in, but he wasn't a guy where it started off like you would like for it to. But what I learned from that is be true to who you are. I think that there's really two different outcomes. It either works or it wasn't a good fit, and for me, it's like, this is the only way I know how to do things. This is the only way. I hired my best friends that are with me every single day. And if this doesn't work, then it wasn't a good fit. The staff was a great fit. They're the people I want to be around. This is the way I want to do it. But if this doesn't work here at Charlotte, then it was not the right fit for us. But I promise you we can do it, and stick to your guns, even at 0-13. I mean, I told you about the one time on the bus, but I believe in the way we do things. Do I sin and fall short every day and screw up a relationship or, whatever, cuss when I shouldn't? Absolutely. I screw up more. I've done every cardinal sin in the book. But I know that at the time when I'm making decisions, I feel like it's the right decision to make. And then I've learned a lot along the way. Sometimes I was dead wrong, but I'm not afraid to say that I was dead wrong either.
Do you remember when you started to really closely inspect what Dabo was doing in terms of the culture that we're talking about, and just a form of leadership that you felt that would be a big part of your leadership moving forward?
I always loved it as an assistant. Just the way he handled himself, how much fun he had winning. It seemed like the relationships he had with his players were just real, genuine, unique. And he was very much against what status quo was saying at that point in time. I've got so much respect for Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney, but there were a lot more Nick Saban type personalities whenever he was there in 2008 than there were Dabo Swinney type personalities. And so he was kind of the oddball. He was a little bit of a trailblazer. Still is a trailblazer. I see the grief he's getting about talking about faith and how he's changed. There's 40 NFL Hall of Famers that are talking about how Dabo Swinney was the reason why they were led to Christ. And it's like, listen, I guarantee you Dabo would say right now, if he goes down, he does not have a regret in his life because he made true difference. And so he's not afraid of being who he is. Dabo, somebody else in college football could say the exact same thing Dabo says, and everybody in the national media would make fun of it like no other. I mean, you can go champions of life. You can go, that's so much bigger than football. You can, all of the things that other people across the country say that resembles what Dabo says on a regular basis. People would mock, make fun, all that time. When Dabo says it, it's kind of like, it's Dabo, and I don't really even. It's like when Tim Tebow says it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just like, yeah, that's who he is. That's how he lives. And as much as people try to pick apart his daily actions with well, surely the guy said a cuss word at some point in time in his life. Yeah, I'm sure he has. But let's don't take away from the fact that the guy's in it so he can make a difference in young men's lives, and he does that. So I would say, as I became a head coach, really diving into what does he do and how does he do it. I got a chance to go up there. I never really got a chance to meet him, but we spent a bunch of time with Coach Morris whenever I was an assistant at Chattanooga, and the hospitality of their building was something that I never forgot. And we've tried to be the same way here. Anybody and everybody to a fault. My assistants sometimes are like, dude, do you know that Appalachian State could have filmed the last 4 days of practice? And you would have no idea. But, I want people to feel welcome and feel like they're part of this place and part of this family. And that's the way I felt in 6 hours of being at Clemson, But I've learned a lot from him, but I would say really dove in when I got an opportunity to be a head coach.
Over the year we've been doing the Dubcast, we've developed a great relationship with the folks over at the Abernathy Boutique Hotel. In addition to being a great meeting spot for our interviews we conduct with local personalities, it's also a fantastic place to stay. The Abernathy is rolling out a loyalty savings program for 2019. After your third stay, you'll automatically be rewarded with an exclusive offer. It can be applied to future reservations for the remainder of the year. 15% off rooms, 15% off food and beverage at Taps Bar and Cafe. Learn more at theabernathy.com. If you run a business that conducts credit card transactions with customers, you got to learn about Tandem Payment. Credit card processing company has offices throughout the Southeast, but the one in Greenville in the upstate, headed up by a 2005 Clemson grad. Tandem's technology allows business owners to offset their credit card processing costs by applying a small customer service charge to each sale they make. Tandem has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and was awarded the Better Business Integrity Award in 2013. Check them out at tandempayment.com. Balance is a huge part of his leadership. Balance in terms of his coaches not working until 3 a.m. I mean, obviously working hard. I mean, they grind like heck, but there are times that are reserved for getting the heck out of the office and being with your families. When you were at Austin Peay, you would pay for the babysitters for all of your assistants to go on date nights every Wednesday?
Yeah, I would. Again, another time where I definitely fell short plenty of times. That was the overall goal, and I know that as forgetful as I am at times, I'm sure there were a couple times where I forgot to do it. And the plan each and every week. Sometimes guys get babysitters, and I didn't know about it, and I definitely miss opportunities to do it. But Monday night, family night, all the families are over here at 5:30, and they usually stay 7:15. We had a dance party in the office this week. My 4.5-year-old loves Old Town Road, and all of his buddies. There's like 12 young kids running around in the hallway dancing and laughing and wearing football helmets and all that type of stuff. And it's really funny because it's chaotic as all get out for those coaches that don't have kids. And the ones that do have kids are like, this is exactly the way it's supposed to be. But, you'll have them sitting in your lap in a staff meeting or sitting front row in a team meeting or pregame running around and in the locker room. Eli's on the field with me pregame, my 4.5-year-old. And so we do that on Sundays. Wednesday night, we do date night. So we do, the babysitters, and it's been really fun in Charlotte to figure out all the different restaurants. I mean, there's a million of them. And so we get a chance to go to a different place in a different part of town. It's like, what is this? There's more than 3 restaurants and we can go to different parts. This is pretty incredible, which is one of the great things about living in Charlotte. But go to a different restaurant, spend, we do it every Wednesday at 6:30, spend about 2.5 hours together, just wives and coaches. And, what we've found out through this whole thing is usually the GAs and quality control guys want to get away from the married guys. So we pay for them to go somewhere else. And it's something I did at Austin Peay and I pay for it, because, and not to make me holier than thou, but the quality of life aspect of these things is really important. Again, a Dabo Swinney deal. That to me, the impressive parts about college football right now. Nick Saban loses his staff every year and still wins the still goes to the national championship game. Dabo Swinney does not lose a guy on staff ever and goes to the national championship. Right? Both of them are extremely impressive in their own right.
Yep.
I would choose to keep this staff. If you could put a freeze on this staff right now, I feel really good about where this place will go. But the other thing about it is, I don't want coaches leaving for lateral jobs. I don't want a coach leaving here to take the same position in another Conference USA school or even an AAC school. I want it to be really hard when Dabo calls them and says, I can give you another $300,000 to come work here, for them to say, this is such a hard decision because my quality of life is that good. And so date nights are part of that. I love spending time with my wife. I love the fact that she gets a chance to spend time around some, our other coaches' wives. They travel on any away trip they want to go on. They go with us. We do the spa day and let them get all pampered up, and no telling how much they run that bill up for there. One of my favorite stories about that, my first year, okay, imagine this. I'm 0-10. We're at the University of Kentucky. We are staying at the one of the big Marriotts over there outside of Lexington. And, my heart is heavy because of all these things that these assistants and their wives had to go through that year. So I said, all right, we're going. This is the big wives trip, because you weren't really going any other places that year that were fun cities for them to go to. So Lexington was the big one, right? So we get there. I do spa day for every woman that was a part of our program, wives, anybody who else who worked there. And I set it up on Friday and Saturday morning. And so the day of the game, we're finishing up the last group of massages, and our director of football operations, Carter Crutchfield, walks up to me and he said, mid-speech, right? I'm giving my best Newt Rockne, we're going to go take down the world, and this is going to be the greatest company, so we're going to break a 29-game losing streak by beating an SEC team on their field. Our football ops guy, Carter, taps me on the shoulder and he says, hey, man. And I'm like, what, dude? I mean, can you not see? Like, I'm getting these guys pumped up. We're about to win a game, and you're killing my vibe here. And he goes, your debit card just declined.
That is fantastic.
And I said, how much I still owe? And he said, you got about $250 and stuff that you still get. And I said, I get paid on Friday of next week. Do you mind if I borrow $250 from you? Man. You know what? I wouldn't do it any other way. I mean, I'm being dead serious. I have a million faults, but like, my goal is, from a quality of life perspective from an assistant and a quality of life perspective from a student athlete, that everybody who's around me feels like nobody can do it better than we can, and they may say he's the dumbest coach known to man and he couldn't call a play if you wrote it down on a sheet of paper for him. But I don't think I haven't had many who wondered if I cared about them or their wives or their kids. And I know that my ultimate priority is to care about my own, and I want them around. I've had way too many coaches in this profession that have said, you can't be a good football coach, husband, father, or, I missed this because I had football or whatever. And I mean, it's like any job, at some point in time, you're going to have to go to the office, but I don't think it's an excuse for missing things that are important to you and priorities that you have. I've always said, to me, from a resource perspective, obviously being at Charlotte is a different resource than what we had at Austin Peay. One of the things that would be cool is, and we don't have many coaches that have high school age kids, but like your kid is in a high school football game, right? You have the coach, he goes to the high school football game on Friday night, and then you have a booster fly him to wherever you are on, after the game's over with. So he can do both. That would be really cool. That's like, squad goal of mine. But that quality of life piece is really important.
I want to share an anecdote from way back, late 2006, early 2007. Dabo is up for the UAB job.
I heard him say this at the FCA, and he's like, UAB job. And I'm like, Dabo, that's a pretty good job, man. I don't know why you're knocking the UAB job. But, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, and he really wanted it. And he was going to go interview. And as he told me last fall, he said, man, all I needed to do was get in front of them. Man, I had slogans, Blazer Nation, this and that. We were about to start a dynasty, right before he's about to leave to go interview, they call him and say, actually, we just made a hire, and they hired Neil Callaway, and he was crushed because he really wanted that job. But that really ranks as one of the more pivotal moments in Clemson football history, because I'm convinced that had he gotten in front of them in person, that he was going to get that job, and most people probably wouldn't disagree with that. And I couldn't help but think of that snapshot when I was reading about at your introductory press conference when you said, and you were not the first choice. I mean, they had Mike Houston, and I guess Spavital was in the mix, took the Texas State job. But you told your AD or the administration, if you look at resumes and you're going to compare this guy's resume and that guy's resume, I'm not winning that battle. I had to get in front of them and sell a vision and culture and relationship, a passion and energy that you can't always do over the phone. Can you just reflect on that? I mean, your record as a head coach was 13-21, even though there was a huge caveat to that, just given where you came from. But 33 years old, a record that doesn't scream head coach on the surface. Can you just reflect on just your willingness, I guess, or desire just to get in front of somebody to sell who you are and what your vision is?
Yeah, that's how long do you have for that answer?
As long as you want.
The thing that always makes me the angriest is that people at Austin Peay and people at Charlotte don't count the spring game. And that's my best opportunity to get back close to 500. So I always feel like that with the Austin Peay job and with this job, that I would what are the questions that people are going to have about me? Number one is, I'm a 13-21 FCS head coach, so as far as the people who don't know Austin Peay, the people who don't know me, it's gonna be a hard sell to your fans, because it's not really exciting. You got an FCS guy who never made the playoffs, who's never called a play, who, is we're all of a sudden going to hire in an FBS program. And so I knew it's very similar to how I feel about recruiting, where you got to get around people enough where they believe in you enough and will take a chance on you. It's the same way I feel about from an interview process. If I have an AD who just looks at resumes, he's never going to hire me. And so I knew I had to get in front of Mike Hill. Mike Hill called me, and, we had an interview set up, and he called me and he said, hey, we've made a decision to go in a different direction. I'd love to get a chance to meet you at some time. I said, hey, can I just meet you? Can I just come meet you? And he said, no, I know how bad you want this job. I'm not going to do that to you. And I respected that. He didn't want to waste any time. He had his guy. He knew who he wanted to hire, and he was ready to move forward with it. And I thought it would have been a great hire. Still think it would have been a great hire. And and then some things kind of went sideways, and next thing you know, you're back in it. And he said, are you still interested? And I said, Mike, I feel the exact same way I did before, and that's a great job. I would love to be considered for that job. But I was 100%, when Mike called me, I was 100% prepared, ready, and excited about going back and making sure we kicked everybody's rear end at Austin Peay. I had a great job. I didn't have to get another job. And I felt like last year going 5-6 at Austin Peay, I was ticked off about where that ended, and I wanted to fix that, And so when the job came back open and I jumped at the opportunity to come up here, I told him I'm bringing my wife. So I brought Emily on the interview at 36 weeks pregnant. She had to call our doctor and make sure it was okay if she got on an airplane the next morning. And flew to Charlotte, and the first question Mike Hill asked was to Emily. Tell me about you. Why is this the right job for y'all? And she sat 36 weeks pregnant at a dining room table for 5 hours while I interviewed for a job. So, I mean, it's an unbelievable job. It's a great place to raise a family, a great place to live. I loved Gerald. I loved Ryan, my bosses at Austin Peay. I loved Clarksville, and I loved those people there. So it's not like I had to get another job to stay happy. I was happy. But I knew this was a no-brainer. I mean, it's a job that I have literally picked out for 2 years. You never want the guy in front of you to not be successful, but this is the job I wanted. So it's pretty incredible living out that, seeing all that come to fruition.
Another similarity with Dabo is both of you look exceptionally young for your age. You're 34 now?
34.
You could pass for 20, I guess. I heard or read somewhere where, I don't know how recent this was, but when you were going into high school as recruiting, they would ask you if you were registering for classes, and you learned to stop by Starbucks. You don't even like coffee, but to walk in with a Starbucks cup, and that was how they looked at you and said, "Oh, it's a football coach."
I started drinking coffee as a 26, 27 year, probably 27. I was at Chattanooga, and I could never get any of the people at the front desk at these high schools to like take me seriously or get a coach out of class for me or anything like that. Because I looked so young. They were like, this guy probably works in the equipment room at one of these places. And, I don't know why he's acting like he's coming here recruiting one of our guys. So I started going by Starbucks and getting like either a hot chocolate or a white chocolate mocha, some of the more manly drinks they had. And going into the high schools with a Starbucks cup, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, we'll be glad to get him out of class." And it was all because I guess I was mature enough to drink Starbucks. I'm not real sure what it did, but it definitely helped.
How old are your kids?
4.5 and 7 months.
Okay, what was it like the first time you came out of the locker room as a dad and you greeted your family? How much did that? How different was it?
It's like you go in different stages. One of the best lessons and hardest lessons I had to learn. I was coaching at Chattanooga and had just gotten married. And we lost a heartbreaker. I can't remember, we were up 21 points or something. Somebody came back and beat us. And I walked out of the locker room and saw my wife for the first time. And at that point in time, my wife's family was there. My family was there. And I was the kind of player and coach that would like mope about it for about 4 days and, act like the sky was falling. And I walked out and something just kind of clicked to me of like, you can't be that jerk that makes everybody's life around you miserable just because you lost a football game. Mm-hmm. I know it stings. I know it hurts, but put your big boy pants on and go be a husband, and that translated well to me. I mean, it's even easier now, not to say that my wife is not enough in itself, but it's even easier now walking out of the locker room and having a 4.5-year-old run and tug on your leg. And I mean, you can win big or get blown out and he doesn't care. He just wants his dad back, And so, that was a great experience. We talk about it as a staff a bunch. I mean, it's not our job as coaches to go home and make our wives' lives miserable just because we lost a game. And it's hard to do, because ultimately, you're going to get fired if you don't win enough of them. But that fine line is important to keep in mind.
Dabo has been saying for years, I want to build the model college football program. And I guess I'm not a good reporter because I've never gotten him to specifically outline what he's talking about. But I can't help, as I look at Syracuse and Dino Babers doing it a different way, a number of others out there, and now you doing it that type of way. I can't help but think that's what he's talking about. He wants people like you and others to sort of look at what they're doing at Clemson and say there's a different way of doing it. Is that the way you see it as well?
Yeah. And I mean, I go back to my first conversation with him. I was a head coach. I was 30 years old and had no clue what the heck I was doing. And I mean, a lot of what I wanted to look up and study and figure out was what he did and how he did it. So I obviously felt like that was a way I was interested in going. Plus some of those people that we talked about earlier, that have been big influences in my life, kind of combining all of those. But there is no question about it that people are trying to mimic and keep going what Dabo's doing at Clemson. I mean, he is the standard right now. And, would probably never admit that, but I think it's really good for college football when you have somebody whose heart's in the right place, who's the standard for what coaches should look like.
Big supporter of the Clemson Dubcast is Harris Flooring America. Based in Anderson, South Carolina, Harris Flooring has been instrumental in a lot of the facilities transformation you've seen on Clemson's campus lately. From the Allen Reeves Center to the McFadden Building to Memorial Stadium to the Neary Center. Family owned and operated since 1947. The owner, Scott Junkins, big Clemson guy. Harris Flooring is just as good inside the home and the residential realm as they are with the larger scale commercial stuff. Give them a call, 864-642-6183 or online at flooringamerica-anderson.com. What's going through your mind last January 7th? Pretty earth-shaking development in college football to see Clemson do what it did to Alabama. What was your takeaway as that was unfolding, other than I'm playing these guys this September?
And you don't listen. I don't have anything negative to say about Alabama, but you're happy for a guy that has been really good to you, but also is doing it the right way for the right reasons, and is, like you just said, setting a new, precedent for what playing and coaching and being a part of college football looks like. I mean, he's changed the narrative in a lot of different ways. So you can't help but be happy. Like, that culture won. That's exciting. That's what I hope our culture looks like. And it can, that's what I feel like when I was around their staff for the one day, and what I hear about their staff all over the country, that's what I feel like our staff has, that camaraderie, that when the door closes and we're preaching to our individual group, everybody is on the same page. We will have knockdown dragouts when we're in a staff meeting about this idea is not the right way to do it, or that, coach, I think this is the wrong plan. And I say, I agree with you, or I say, this is why I'm doing it. And when the door closes, everybody is going in the same direction, knowing that, hey, I may not agree with it, but I would absolutely do anything for this guy to make sure he's successful. And I mean, it's like after a loss, I mean, I spend so much time going around to the assistants, making sure they're okay, because I know it hurts them so bad that they feel like they let me down. That's from an assistant. I'm not talking about a player. That's from an assistant. Like, get your head up and go home and be a great dad, or be a great husband, or go get away from it a little bit. Like, you didn't let me down. I appreciate you even being here to give me a shot to go along for this ride, but don't ever feel like you let me down, But I think that, to me, is what I would want somebody to say about me, not, I'm scared if I don't do my job, he'll fire me, or I'm scared if I don't do my job, he'll rip me. I mean, that's the way I performed best as a player. That's the way I envision being a head coach. But there's also the fine line of, you got to hold them accountable too. Now they're your best friends. You cannot be afraid to tell them when you think they're messing up. And I had to learn that through the whole process. Just don't wait on a hard conversation. I mess up at that all the time. Put it off an extra day, put it off an extra day, put it off an extra day. And it becomes, it'll bite you every time. But I'm not afraid to have hard conversations, but they know how much I love them, and they will respond. The people you're closest with are usually the ones that you can have the hardest conversations with, and they will keep coming back and helping you. And that's what our staff's like.
I'm sure you can fill a notebook with the things you've learned from him, but if in one sentence, the most important or insightful thing that either he's told you or that you've picked up from him.
Oh, goodness. Man, that's a great question. Probably that I picked up from him is be really confident in yourself, regardless of what the outcome is. Just if your heart's in the right place, be confident in your decisions, stand by your decisions, stand by your program, stand by your culture, regardless of if you feel like you get the results that you expect or feel like you deserve.
Great stuff. Will, I could talk to you for several more hours, but you have a lot of work to do.
I've loved it, man.
Yeah.
I really have. It's been awesome.
I can't thank you enough. Oh, I know. What's going to be the feeling when you're standing out there, night game, at Death Valley at I guess 7:15 or so?
I'm going to have to escape the being there like a little kid standing at midfield watching Dabo run down the hill and touch the rock and all the stuff that you usually see on ESPN on Saturday nights. And I think that's a big part of that whole experience. And I've been a part of a lot of those experiences from the other side, at Chattanooga playing Alabama, Auburn, Nebraska, at Austin Peay playing Georgia. I've been a part of a lot of those experiences, and you got to get over that initial shell shock of like, I'm not watching this on TV. I'm actually here, and we have to go compete against the same guy that I'm like wanting to write a book about. I got to go compete against him, and I want to beat him, and so that it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun for our families to be there, and a lot of fun for our guys to play in that type of environment. I mean, that's right now the mecca of college football, and for us to be able to be on that stage and go compete against those guys will be a treat.
You told Scott Frost before your meeting with UCF and Austin Peay in 2017, if there's a report of lightning anywhere in the continental United States, we're getting on the plane and leaving.
And we believe in player safety. Yes.
You going to say anything similar?
No.
Okay.
No, I think I didn't know Scott Frost at the time very well, and I'm sure Dabo already thinks I'm a clown anyway, so I don't need to do anything to add to that perception. But I've been in a lot of those environments, and Scott Frost said, between my conversation with Scott Frost and Kirby Smart, I think both of them, I think both of them felt so sorry for me when I got the job. That's why they had good things to say, because they guaranteed me they'd never had a midfield conversation like the one they had with me whenever we were there. So I have a lot of fun in those situations.
That's great. When did Dabo come speak in Charlotte and you went and watched him and met him for the first time?
I had just gotten the job, January-ish. January, February, somewhere around in there. He spoke at Elevation Church over in Ballantyne, South Park. And our FCA guys asked if I wanted to go. And I think they may have had like one ticket somewhere up front, but I went with Carter, our do-it-all general manager, director, recruiting coordinator, all that stuff. And so we sat in Rosie. We were literally, and the funny thing about it is I'd just taken the job. I'm walking up. It's obviously all orange in there. And I'm walking up the stairs, and I'm walking to the very top, and this guy, I could hear him. He's like, I think that's the coach at Charlotte. And the other guy was like, no, he's way too young to be the coach at Charlotte. And I just kept on walking my little happy rear end all the way up to Rosie, and I could have sat there for another 10 hours listening to Dabo preach. It was awesome. So, and I sent him a text afterwards. I was like, those were great seats. I'm glad that I get it. I see where I stand now, that I'm in the very top of the theater. And so I was giving him a hard time.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to see him after practice later today, so I'll tell him you said hello, and Hopefully we can meet when you get here, and tell Travis Haney hello, and thanks so much for setting this up.
I'll do it. I texted Dabo yesterday and asked, I was like, I know it's not like you're playing Syracuse or anything and ranked number 1 in the country, but my wife would love to meet your wife on, Saturday. And he texted me right back and said, she's always on the field pregame, would love for them to make that work. Let's catch up next week. So, he's that kind of guy, he's just always above and beyond. There aren't many guys that you could probably send that to during the middle of a big week and get that response, but that's him. I would love for you to be around. If you, we're staying in Greenville. If you want to come hang out, if you want to come eat dinner or come pregame, whatever you want to do, come on, come do it.
Sure. I really appreciate that.
Just get a hold of Travis or get a hold of me and let me know. I would love to meet you and have to meet you before we leave. So, and then even after that, if you'd want to come up and hang out, come on. We'd love to have you.
That sounds great. This has been a wonderful conversation, Will, and best of luck against UMass and safe travels.
All right, Bud. Sounds good. Look forward to meeting you. Thanks for your time.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Great stuff there. Really, really cool. Would love to hang out with that guy to talk football, but not just football, but life. And by the way, that was recorded last week, so that explains why we were talking about UMass and Syracuse as games coming up instead of past. Thanks to all of our sponsors for supporting this endeavor, including our title sponsor, Parham Smith & Archenhall Law Firm, and most of all, thanks to all of you for making this a part of your routine. We'll have number 2 later this week, and we've got a really, really cool guest whose name I think a lot of you will recognize, a bit of a blast from the past. We'll keep it under wraps for now just to create a little suspense. All right, everybody have a great week. Cheers.